Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm on my deck again, and today I want to actually show you some of my favorite books. This came up as there was a comment on my last video, and I think I might have mentioned the tree book, or what I was studying when I'm not painting, and someone asked what book, and so that's a great idea. So I'm going to show you a few of the books here, and yeah, but I thought before we do that, in honor of my buddy Michael, who actually spoke a little bit about Bob Ross in his last video, and I must say you handled that question like really well, and so yeah, so I got out to Bob, and we're gonna hear what Bob's got to say today. But I'll put Michael's video right here in case you want to check it out. But here's let's see what Bob's got to say.
Let's get crazy. What the heck? Like a 2-inch brush. This is your bravery test.
It's a bravery test. I love that. Anyway, all right, so I'm going to show you some of these, and we'll check them out. All right, so the first book I want to show you is called The Artistic Anatomy of Trees by Rex Vicat Cole, and this is really cool because it actually talks about like a tree's life cycle and how it grows and ages and like what it does, which really helps you understand when you're looking at a tree, kind of more about how the branches move and change, and like there's some really good things kind of up here in the front section that I like, that have a lot to do with massing, because like one of the first chapters, like here, this is a really cool diagram that just talks about kind of the massing of trees, and then the sky holes in there. Actually, I really like this a lot because you can see how it's not overdone, and it shows like an elm tree over here, and there's lots of different illustrations like that are really cool. After this massing section, there's this really cool thing here about how lines like influence each other, and it's talking about the value of a line and things like that. It gets pretty in depth, and it's surprising actually, like just these pencil, and I actually enjoy the fact that it's in black and white. And there's another book I have that's the same way, because you really get a sense of value in things when it's in black and white rather than being in color. And I'll show you an example of that here. Hope you can see that okay. Anyway, Artistic Anatomy of Trees, one of my favorites. And yeah, so the next one is Capturing the Moment in Oils by David Curtis. As those of you who've been following me for some time, you know I'm a huge David Curtis fan, and I'm not shy about that. One of the things that, I mean, there's so many things I like about his work and his art, but what I find that I have to do is on certain paintings, if I'm looking at, let me find a good example here. Oh yeah, like maybe this one as an example. I can get like super overwhelmed, like looking at the painting, and I don't know how you feel about when you look at art books and things as an artist. It's almost like a sensory overload, and you can become actually quite exhausted after spending a lot of time at it, because if you think about how much of you're using like both sides of your brain function to a great deal, you know, the creative side and the analytical side. And anyway, I don't know, maybe I'm just a little bit crazy, but anyway, one of the things I wanted to tell you is that I make myself hone in on passages so that I'm not looking at this mass right here. I'll just hone in on like this little corner and I'll just kind of study that corner and try and get a sense of, you know, how far away this is in the distance, and this value and color shift here, and then the bright field, the sand or whatever this is down in here, and then this dark edge that actually lays against all of that. And I'll just try and take a look at that in itself, and then I'll move on to like another small passage, and maybe it's just this little bit right in here, and I'll see where the, you know, I've got this house and the car, and really fairly simple shapes, but when you look at the whole painting, you just go, oh my gosh, there's an awful lot going on there. And then these kind of scumbling, faded, maybe took a rag and wiped that out and then went over top of it with these branches. It's just amazing and beautiful, and the whole book is like that. Here's another scene that's a really good example of, if you get too caught up in this, it's just kind of overwhelming. But if you take it piece by piece, you really can kind of start to understand how he kind of put the painting together, because, you know, all of the detail rests right in here, and the further back you go, there's just not, it's just color and dots and little scratches, lines and things like that. So it simplifies it for me, and it really helps me to understand a lot of it. But there's so many cool paintings in here, both high key and low key, and that I just can't absorb it enough. And I learn something every time I pick this book up and check it out. So that's definitely one of my favorites. Well, I'm thinking about that. It'd be super cool if you know, if down in the comments, share some of your favorite books, so I can take a look at what you guys are looking at, and see kind of what everybody looks at when they're looking at art and stuff. So the next one is one that I've been working on pretty much for I've been going through it for about the last 6 months or so, and I'll show you that one here. It's oil painting, the workshop experience. It's by Ted Gershner, and it's taught me a lot. And like some of the other ones, you know, I haven't gone terribly deep. I have my EZO catalog in here. It's just a reminder that Peggy actually recommended this book to me, as well as this book, The Artistic Anatomy of Trees, and this Carlsons book as well. So 3 of these were recommended by Peggy. But anyway, I think this will be less glary for you. But here's what I like about this particular book. Once you get into it, first of all, just doing this exercise with the way he makes grays, and I'm going to find it here. Yeah, the way he's making these, the way you gray your colors for shadow and distance, and they're basically 3 grays that he makes, and he goes through how to do that, and these warm light value hues are like really, you know, so many times you just think about distance as being a light, cool value, and when you take some of the grays and you bring down some of your bright colors with those, you know, you can have warm colors that live in the distance but are still very grayed and work out that way. He talks an awful lot about color harmony and you having a plan when you set out to do a painting like that last one I did. You know, it was I specifically was trying to use a limited palette based on one of his earlier lessons here, and so it tended to be somewhat monochromatic in nature, but there weren't any real strong warms, so that particular painting took on a very, very cool, the whole thing is cool, and so I've looked at it today and I actually think I may go back and kind of warm up some areas of it where the light is hitting. But I really enjoy how everything is so simplified. The workshop things that he does are like some of my favorite, because he actually takes something called critique on critique, and he takes a look at a painting like this as an example. He takes this painting and then he talks about some of the principles that he's teaching, and then he actually shows you what he would do with that particular painting, and so you really get a sense of how he operates and what he's looking at and what he thinks about, and which is actually really, really cool, and some of the stuff makes so much sense. But anyway, Oil Painting, the Workshop Experience, super cool book as well. This one, Carlson's Guide to Landscape Painting. One of the things I like about this one, like the other tree book, is it's all in black and white. And one of my favorite chapters in this particular book is about aerial perspective, and it's not something that that you hear people talk about a lot, or that you really, I haven't studied it a lot. But one of the nicest things that he did here is he actually kind of broke down these zones, the gradation of color and value in the sky, and so you can see how it's kind of orange yellow zone and orange red zone, and this kind of violet zone, kind of gray violet red, and then this yellowish green zone and greenish blue, and then violet blue. And it really kind of helps with aerial perspective when you're thinking about things in terms, especially like trees and things, how they change as they go up from the ground, and not just trees, but any vertical element really. And then there's also there's something in here about linear perspective, and it's got a nice chapter on trees, and it's a lot of probably what you've heard and seen in other places, like variety and trunks, and how you group them and their spacing, and all that good stuff. But outside of that, there's a lot of really nice stuff in this book, and I like I said before, I really appreciate that it's done, and that it's just maybe it was always printed in black and white, so there's no opportunity to go back and do it in color. But I personally think it really makes a difference. But super cool. Carlson's Guide to Landscape Painting, and the words in this book are also extremely important because they're very educational. So, and I couldn't resist another David Curtis book, because his I like all of his books, and this is another one like the one Capturing the Moment in Oils that I really appreciate. My favorite chapter in this book is the one on interpretation, and I'm just going to read you this introduction to it. It says, "I firmly believe that painting should always show a personal response, both with regard to the chosen subject or idea and the means by which this is expressed. Naturally, when we first start painting, there can be a strong desire to copy exactly what is observed in the subject matter, in effect, simply to record what is there. While there is value in this, particularly in helping to develop skills in observation, drawing, and in interpreting color, such work often lacks real impact. It may well show sound technique and ability, but where is its soul, its individuality and emotional response? These qualities come from the perception, sensitivity, and interpretive skills of the artist." That just gives you a kind of a flavor of how he writes. And here's something I got to say about David Curtis. No artist should be this good at both oil and watercolor, because it almost makes me mad when I see it. But look at this watercolor. It is just absolutely incredible. And this book is actually full of both mediums, both oil and watercolor. And it's like you see an oil painting, and you go, wow, that's really a beautiful oil. And then close by, you see these watercolors that you just go, that just shouldn't shouldn't be. I mean, bravo for him to have that kind of skill in both mediums, because some of his watercolors are just amazing. Yeah, like this is obviously Stays, one of his favorite places to paint, where he paints frequently. But look at these watercolors. But you know, I like him for his oils. I appreciate a lot what he is able to do. I'm completely inspired by it, and can't help but recommend 2 David Curtis books in this particular session. So anyway, I hope you found that interesting, and I'm happy to share with you some of my favorite books. And as I said, you know, share some of yours down below so I can see what you're up to. And I will. I think I'll probably do this again sometime, because these are mostly art instruction books. But then I might also like to show you some of my. Like I have a book by Gauguin and a book by Degas and some other of my favorite books like that, and also my favorite books to read. So I'll share a few of those with you down the road as well. But anyway, thanks so much for hanging out. And if you're not a subscriber, I invite you to subscribe and follow along. And I will catch you later.